Shalom, shalom, everybody. Well, you didn't think I was going to miss out on this opportunity to do a Christmas video, Pagan Origins, did you? Of course not. Now, it's good to see you guys. I'm Matiyahu, or Matthew, if you like. You're Endtime Watchmen. And I just want to read a couple things real quick. Well, I don't know if this is going to be quick. It's quite a bit of stuff I have to read, but I wanted to go through the Christmas. I have the esoteric view of the mythological Christmas, what and who it's really all about. And that's what we really need to get into. Where's my camera? There we go. Who is this festival of Saturnalia? What is this all really about? And who is this all about? It really boils down to Nimrod worship, the all-seeing eye. That's who it is. This is his birthday today. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into this. December 25th has been someone's birthday for over 4,000 years. He was the first king on earth. He built Babel, a tower, and became the first mighty one, or God-man. This rebel wanted to shoot an arrow at Yahuwah from the top of the tower. He founded the worship of the host of heaven, known today as astrology, the worship of the Mazareth or the zodiac, the animal-shaped star groups, and I've gone over this in my videos before, guys. Is based on celebrating the rebirth of the sun at the time of the winter solstice in December. All right, that's all this is about. Since ancient times, the solar birthday and all of the symbols associated with sun worship were practices honoring the deification of Nimrod. And remember, I talked about this in my Allah videos. Who is Allah? I talked a lot about this, went into great detail, and in the Easter Pagan Origins video, I went into greater detail. Nimrod became the template for all sun worship. His name was babbled in the confusion of languages, becoming Shamash, all right, Ra in the Egyptian, Mithras in the Roman, if I'm not mistaken, Moloch, which would be Jewish or Canaanite, Baal, Apollo, Cronus, Orin, Got, where we get the term God, G-O-D, Odin, Zeus, Krishna, etc. Okay, this is how Satan, this is how clever Satan is. He's been hiding himself in all these different characters. That light out of my eye. Okay. And I've talked about this before in my etymology of Satan video. I urge you to watch that before you watch this video to make a little bit more sense. His identity is occulted in the character of Santa Claus, Krampus, or Old Nick. By the way, if you go anywhere over to Europe, or any place over in, I think it's in Russia and places like that, Saint Nick is known as somebody who's evil, comes to eat your children and stuff. So it's not known as a holly jolly figure. Now the founder, remember, programmed from childhood. The founder of the societies IESU used this maxim: give me the child for the first 7 years, and I'll give you the man. Ignatius de Loyola, founder of the Jesuits. A day is coming when all mankind will be judged for causing stumbling blocks. Children, remember, this is the biggest thing. Children are the target. Where do I want to go with this? Here we go. Remember, Christ plus Mass is the Greek, which means anointed Christ, and then Mass, which means to depart. That's what it is. Christ's Mass is really what it's actually called. Now, here's the missionary adaptation. Now, Dionysius Exiguus, a Scythian monk, visited Rome in the year 525. He witnessed Rome's fertility festival of Saturnalia and was appalled by it. History tells us he modified the reason for the celebration. The whole world now thinks of December 25th as the birth of the Messiah, a revision mostly unexplored by most people. Because we know this is not the Messiah's birthday at all, anywhere close to it. It's over either near the fall or in the spring. We live by only lies and myths passed down to us. Every popular celebration you can think of is directly inherited from pagan fertility worship from our ancestors, as I've routinely spoken of in my videos. Paul was concerned that his work had been in vain among the Galatians. That's another thing too. Paul talks about this a lot. He talks about the pagan worship probably the most through most of the New Testament. They were falling back into their old pagan traditions and special days. He called their former pagan customs weak and miserable principles. Pastors falsely teach their flocks those Galatians were falling back into Torah. Do not learn the ways of the heathen. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verse 1 through 5. Yahusha, or J-E-S-U-S, is opening our eyes now. And abiding in his word is setting us free of the devil's scheme. I wanted to show you this picture. When Yahusha was born, we should stop the pagan stuff and teach him what's real. He's too young to choose a custom anyway. Happy Sukkot. Sukkot. I don't know if my camera's in the best. But once again, Yahusha is opening our eyes now, and abiding in his word is setting us free of the devil's schemes. He is calling us to come out of the mother of harlots, Babel's traditions. Celebrating Christmas is adapted from sun worship. All pastors know it, but don't teach about it. They will defend the pagan origins, explaining how it doesn't matter because the purpose for it has been redirected. This is where they foul. This is where they err. Okay? They react with the statement, it doesn't mean that anymore. And this is what I hear constantly. And yes, I've called many churches out on this, and pastors. Some will confess that everything Christianity practices is inherited from pagans, verifying Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19. Sun worship literally transformed itself into the thousands of religious sects known by many names, hiding its origins from the ignorant masses by a policy of missionary adaptation. Syncretism, and I've talked about this as well. When we refuse to receive a love for the truth, Yahuwah, or God, sends us a strong delusion to believe the lie. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. Look into that. What is missionary adaptation? This a teaching method used to shape the existing beliefs or words and symbols and practices of a culture into different meanings. This method served well to spread Catholicism. This behavior is still reinforced and condoned as doing a greater good. But from the viewpoint of Yahuwah, it is a scheme of the devil to teach the traditions of men as a form of righteousness while abandoning the word of Yahuwah. See 2 Timothy chapter 3. Another warning about turning aside to myths is recorded at 2 Timothy 4 as well. Peter tells us how the false teachers will be saying the truth is evil. That's at 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 1 through 3. Verses 1 through 3, I should say. But there also came to be false prophets among the people, as also among you there shall be false teachers who shall secretly bring in destructive heresies and deny the master who bought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. And many shall follow their destructive ways, because of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of, and in greed with fabricated words they shall use you for gain. From of old their judgment does not linger, and their destruction does not slumber. Those teaching the truth in the last days are exposing the schemes of the devil, getting the bride, which is us, cleaned up. Now, Christmas, birthdays, Easter, and Halloween are special days in the eyes of most people and entwine very strongly with family bonds. Now, Yahuwah, God, forbids us to mimic pagans. We've been duped, and witchcraft has entangled itself with our family bonds. When we abandon pagan customs and explain why we can no longer practice them, we are accused of being hateful, and they heap abuse upon us. And I know that many of you have suffered this. We all suffer this. 1 Peter chapter 4 shows us what's happening. Consequently, and I quote, consequently, he does not live out his remaining time on earth for human passions, but for the will of Elohim. For you have spent enough time in the past carrying out the same desires as the pagans, living in debauchery, lust, darkness, orgies, carousing, and detestable idolatry. Because of this, they consider it strange of you not to plunge with them into the same flood of reckless indiscretion, and they heap abuse on you. This is what Yahuwah, God, means about us being the salt of the earth. If we live among them and they hardly notice us, we have lost our saltiness. At Revelation chapter 12, Yahusha describes for us a great sign, the woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, in his own unwary bride, surrounded by the 12-star patterns. She is defied by all her idolatrous sun worship. Our acts of obedience are our white robes. We can no longer walk as pagans. Come out of her, Revelation chapter 18, verse 4. Yahusha uses these words to call his bride out of the teachings of the harlot mother before releasing his wrath. Come out of her. He cries out, come out, or calls out, I should say. Now, when was Yahusha born? The J-E-S-U-S figure. Tradition informs us Yahusha, J-E-S-U-S, was born December 25th, Christmas Day, and shepherds and magi came that night to worship the child. The truth is far different in practically every detail. To the Romans, December 25th was the time of Saturnalia, celebrated with wild frivolity, drunken feasting, and fertility symbols to herald the rebirth of their sun deity, Apollo. Soldiers knew him as Mithras, the slayer of the bull, the zodiac/animal constellation, Taurus. December 25th was adopted to revise the pagan festival into a Christian festival. In 321, Constantine enforced Rome's venerable Day of the Sun, replacing the seventh-day Sabbath as a day to rest. Sunday is not Yahuwah's Sabbath. Occult practices were camouflaged with new interpretations, leaving the symbols and behavior perfectly intact to this day. Mithras was the Persian sun deity popularized by the Roman soldiers. By the way, I did a video about Mithras, the sun cult deity. You can check that out. I did a video on that. They went full tilt Nimrod too. I want to say that you know that he wasn't born on the night and the Magi didn't come the same night, because it says in the scriptures that he was probably around 1 or 2 years old, but that Mary was coddling him on the knee, and the Magi came. I think it was about 2 years later. The Magi came, and then they brought the frankincense and myrrh and all that and the gold. But it was about 2 years later. They didn't come on the night he was born. So when you're looking at that nativity scene, that's not a true depiction of what happened that night, because it didn't happen like that at all. It's a total fabrication. We need to really, really trust our scriptures. Christmas, a satanic practice. A 17th century Puritan public notice said, the observance of Christmas having been deemed a sacrilege, the exchanging of gifts and greeting, dressing in fine clothing, feasting, and similar satanical practices are hereby forbidden, with the offender liable to a fine of 5 shillings. That's a 17th century Puritan public notice. Excuse me. So the Puritans were aware. Santa is the Nimrod sun deity. Santa Claus is a mispronunciation of Saint Nicholas, heard as Santi Claus. In truth, a Saint Nicholas never existed. The world is deluded by similar myths. The Celtic word for feast is Yule. The Yule log is related to Nimrod as the sun deity, bringing back light and warmth to the world. As a matter of fact, I have it written down that the Yule log is burned to give the sun strength. Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 5 illustrates this when it talks about Baal worship. Remember, Saturnalia and Mithras, you can tell that these are all the same, because, like Christmas, because they had special food, they decorated with greenery, and joined in giving, or joined in being with each other in singing and gift giving. So you can tell that all of this stuff is satanic in nature and pagan in origin. And we are not to celebrate these things. Not to. Illegal. Yahuwah hates them. The Yule log is related to Nimrod as the sun deity, bringing back light and warmth to the world. His birthday and other kings after him were the earliest form of birthday celebrations. Most of the world goes by a calendar year heavily influenced by this ancient association with the king's birthday. Nimrod is all over this, and his mythology hovers near the fireplace of homes today as families burn a Yule log in the hope of his arrival down the chimney. See, they're totally oblivious. The fireplace was a Roman family's worship place, guys. The most important day to a witch is their own birthday, and I had this in my birthday pagan customs video. So witch's favorite holiday is a birthday. The custom to surround oneself with loved ones on this day is believed to protect the celebrant from evil. Witches worship Mother Nature, their goddess. That's why I told you guys so bad about this getting together around these holidays and stuff. These are not to be celebrated at all. The Norse Ostara, the Norse goddess Ostara, is the old term for Babel's Ishtar, the Earth Mother, also widely known as Easter. Remember, Nimrod was worshipped at Rome as Mithras. Caves and indoor altars were employed, and you can see where they found, this is Mithras slaying the bull. It's a stone depiction. Remember, the Pontificus Maximus, Nimrod, Moloch, the Baphomet, all have their throne that they sit in. Do you see that? This is where we're really going to delve deep into this right here, this Moloch character. I'm going to talk about this Moloch character quite a bit here. Thrones for rulers of the world order. And there's the Baphomet statue, and this is going up all over the place right now, guys. I don't know if you're paying attention, but these are getting put up all over the place, especially around this time. The Satanists are out like crazy right now. Remember, we have inherited nothing but futility, and pastors declare Yahuwah's word is done away. Most live as if they are pleasing Yahuwah with their pagan behavior, as if he now loves the things he once called abominations. It's very important that we understand that. Nimrod's rebellion is also expressed in humanism, encouraging people to serve humanity rather than Yahuwah. Nimrod's objectives are reflected in the rising world order. The man who invented Christmas was Nimrod. It is no coincidence his avatar deities, which exist only in their imaginations of men, were all supposedly born on December 25th. You have Mithras, Helios, Horus, Attis, Zeus, Dionysus, which is the son of Zeus, Jupiter, Ra, Perseus, Tammuz, Hercules, Baal, Bacchus, which is where you get Valentine's Day, Apollo, Moloch, obviously I told you that was going to come up, Sol, which is the sun, Inti, Krishna, Jabulon, Odin, Woden, Surya, and Baphomet. The scriptural directives and calendar were disregarded, and the framework of paganism was adopted. Causing great confusion, sun worship became disguised as Christianity, keeping every habit ever practiced by pagans. Sunday, holy water, statues, crosses, trees, wreaths, relics, rosaries, pillars, circumambulation, priestly vestments, scarves, talismans, domes, etc. Steeples, I should put in there as well. Daniel chapter 12, verse 4 tells us in the end times, knowledge of truth will increase. The neglected scriptural festivals are shadows forming the redemption plan, and one of them foreshadows Sukkot, or tabernacles, which is the marriage supper. Those who practice idolatry will not be counted in the assembly of the marriage supper of the Lamb. Yahusha has never had anything to do with Christmas or December 25th. He never ever celebrated his birth ever. Actually, and when he did celebrate anything, he celebrated the festivals and he celebrated the Feast of Dedication, which is Hanukkah. Men forced this upon the ignorant masses, this information I just read off. Here in the information age, ignorance is a choice. We can serve the traditions and commandments of men through recycled fertility festivals inherited from pagans, or wake up and serve the creator of all things, our Redeemer Yahusha. Remember, Noah seemed to be a nutcase to the people of his time as well, until it started to rain. And I mean, it rained. You guys know about the flood. Look closely at the pictures above. Sun worship involved child sacrifices. The dragon gave them their throne or seat of authority. The dragon gave them their throne or seat of authority. Now, I just want to go into Christmas, Satan's birthday, Christ's Mass. A Christian minister once responded to a letter that was sent to him, admitting that there are many traditions with Christianity that were originally pagan, but he said they are only in the background now. Yes, they certainly are, buried under new meanings, reinterpreted, to obscure them. The Arabs did it with their Kaaba cube, and most can see that. But when it's something we want to do, we deny it. The minister also said that since we don't intend to be worshiping the sun now, that it's all okay. I just was talking about how it's not. When a person chooses to believe in something, their heart follows after it, even if it's a lie or a fantasy. It doesn't matter to them because they are seeing things from their perspective. But Proverbs chapter 19 verse 2 says, "It is not good to have zeal without knowledge, nor be hasty and miss the way. A man's own folly ruins his life, and yet his heart rages against Yahuwah." Many believe that Christmas is in the writings with the stable, manger, Star of Bethlehem, shepherds, and magi visitation. Also, everyone is programmed to celebrate birthdays. So why not celebrate the birth of the most important person ever born? Well, we don't celebrate his birthday. If anything, we celebrate the death and resurrection, but we don't celebrate the birthday. It's not anywhere in Scripture for us to be doing that. Real quick, I wanted to put down here I think there's been a confusion when it comes to the Christmas tree. So hopefully I'm going to be able to drown some of it out real quick. But here's some more Nimrod stuff and Santa Moloch. We've heard all the nice stuff, but what entanglements do we have with the man who supposedly flies horned beasts through the air at night? Is it about sorcery? He wears a wizard cap. The red costume is recent, but it's the ancient color of fire. It's our cultural color for danger. The costume is trimmed in sheepskins. He descends into a fire pit at midnight. The hearth is directly linked to the idolatry of the Romans. The fire was sacred to them, and its place was the center of the pagan worship of their deities. Our mythology of him comes to us through the Anglo-land, or England, and that traces to Holland and Germany and back to Turkey. One version involves a 3rd century story about a Saint Nicholas. It had no mention of elves, chimneys, flying reindeer, or supernatural feats. The Christmas tree isn't mentioned in the story. Christianity had made no inroads into the northern areas of Anglo-land, Holland, Scotland, Finland, and Ireland until well into the 5th century. If anyone named Nicholas existed in Holland during the 3rd century, he was a pagan who obeyed his Druid priest. In the 8th century, a man named Boniface encountered these Druid-led people of the north and sought to convert them. He saw them bringing oak trees into their homes at the winter solstice. I urge you, decorating them with gold balls representing testicles. All right. I urge you guys to look up in 2 Kings. I don't have the verses on me. In 2 Kings, it talks about the Ashereth. And in Jeremiah chapter 10, the cutting down of the tree, the workman of the axe, decorating it with gold and silver and fastening it. Yes, that is the Christmas tree. It's the Ashereth pole is what it is. But it is the Christmas tree. Except they used to strip it and decorate it with gold and all of that. You know, they would nail gold and stuff to it and silver and then nail it in place so it wouldn't move anywhere. Same thing that we do with our trees. Not that we strip them bare, but then they didn't always strip them bare. They would bring oak trees into their homes at the winter solstice, full-blown oak trees, and then decorate them. All right? Now remember, the tree represents the phallic symbol, which is the man's penis, and then the ornaments represent the testicles or the balls. Right? Then you have the tinsel, which represents the semen, okay? And then what they do is they take the presents and put them under the tree, but that was your children in ancient times. Children were put underneath the tree. Then they lit the tree on fire. Now what they do is they put presents underneath the tree and wrap the tree in lights, and they turn on the lights so the Christmas tree is lit up. And then they put the star on top. Okay, the Star of Rephan, which is talked about in the book of Acts, if I'm not mistaken. That Star of Rephan is what they're talking about, not the Star of David being on the top of the tree. That's the evil. The word druid means oak wise because oak trees were sacred to them. This comes from Babylon. At the death of Nimrod, the wife/mother, Semiramis, taught the young Tammuz to go into the groves, Asherim forests, and place a gift on a tree at the winter solstice. Listen very closely to this, guys. This is very important because the word groves is mentioned so many times in the Old Testament. You need to look at my Easter pagan origin videos where I specifically talk about the Ashereth tree, which is the Christmas tree. And I'm going to say this once again. At the death of Nimrod, the mother/wife of Nimrod, Semiramis, taught her son, the young Tammuz, to go into the groves, because we hear this word groves mentioned in the Bible. It's actually the Asherim or forests, and place a gift on a tree at the winter solstice. This was an offering to his father, Nimrod, who is now the son. That's why we do not do that, okay? Do not bring that detestable thing into the home. That's in Deuteronomy, I think. Do not bring that detestable thing into the home. The custom of tying a yellow ribbon around an oak tree represents a prayer to the sun. The oak tree was sacred to Odin in the Nordic, in Vikings and stuff like that. It's Celtic. Branches of trees symbolize Nimrod to them. So decorating pagan temples with homes with holly, boughs, and wreaths. And by the way, the wreath represents, it's a fertility symbol, represents a woman after giving birth, the vagina. And wreaths was the custom. The wreaths are branches twisted into circles, so the branches would be associated, like I said, with childbirth, representations of a womb and birth canal. Remember, it is the nativity of the son they celebrated. Ezekiel chapter 8, verse 14 through 18 shows us how the women in Jerusalem were weeping for Tammuz, and the lute priests, 25 men, were facing the rising sun and putting a branch to their nose. These customs were called a detestable thing. In Jeremiah chapter 10, verse 2 through 4, we see this. Do not learn the ways of the Gentiles, and do not be terrified of the zodiac signs, all right, the Mazzaroth, the zodiac, although the Gentiles are terrified by them. For the customs of the Gentiles are delusion. They cut a tree from the forest. They work of a cutting tool, the axe. They decorate it with the silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and hammers. And yes, this is talking about the Christmas tree. It can't be talking about any other tree. What else is that talking about? Explain that to me. What else could they possibly be talking about? Because he mentions the Asherah tree a lot. It's what our Savior was crucified on. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so detestable to him. I continue. A Benedict monk, Boniface, influenced the Druids in 722 CE to adopt a slight variation on the Asherah tree. When Boniface saw the people of the Druids bringing oak trees into their homes, he diverted them to consider the evergreen tree instead and used it to teach them about eternal life. He never taught them that the tree or the wreath was a detestable thing set apart for destruction, along with anyone who would bring it into their home. Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 26. That's where it says, do not bring that detestable thing into thy home. People of other regions used date palms. Scholars call it syncretism, when a religious or philosophical behavior is united or combined with another behavior, which is what we see now with all the religions. Ecumenism. It is an attempt to disguise one of them in the camouflage of the other by reinventing a new meaning and passing it into another culture. Teaching the children will ensure it will pass on to the next generation and the next, and so on. Because the behavior is cyclical and associated with the warmth and love of the family bond, the satanic scheme quickly adheres to the fabric of a culture and stays there. To question or abandon pagan behavior is akin to rejecting one's family. From their perspective, rejecting tradition appears to be unloving and taken very personally, which is not what we're trying to do. We mean this out of love. Remember that. The scheme is insidious and very difficult to come out of because the bonds of family are entwined into the traditions so tightly. Those who want to continue in the traditions feel they have been betrayed and their loved one has fallen into a cult. But in truth, the traditions are the culture that has ensnared them in it, and the one who has escaped has been set free by the truth. Now let's talk about this mullet character. This would be mullet. And this is what the Canaanites or the ancient Hebrews used to sacrifice their children to, and that's where we get Santa Claus from. Okay? Moloch is lurking nearby at Christmas. In truth, he is Santa Claus. The Christmas tree, whether an oak, an evergreen, or a palm, points back to Isabel's Baal/Asherah rebellion, the witchcraft of Babel. It's very simple, guys. In the Bible, it talks about the Asherah tree. It's as ancient as the scriptures. It was in the original garden that we first find that trees are involved in determining whether mankind would sin or not. Satan is a usurper, liar, and imitates closely many things. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Satan is still using trees to whisper lies to us. When we go out to stores at the end of the Roman year, we often walk by many of these displays, knowing the trees are Asherim, and that wreaths are fertility symbols, female genitalia. If there really was a real person named Nicholas, and it's not all just a legend, he sure went through some changes. The oldest account of his existence is vague and of relatively recent origin. His location places him among the Germanic Dutch, but as I mentioned, these people were not yet Christians. The date and location for him makes it an anachronism. The time is against it being true. As in, that's why I don't use the word Jesus, because the letter J wasn't invented till the 13th century. So what did they call our Savior in the time when he was alive in the 1st century? If the letter J, once again, was not invented until the 13th century, 1,300 years later, after the 1st century, what was his name? Yahusha. All right, it's very simple. His Hebrew name is Yahusha. And I shouldn't say his Hebrew name, that's his name. You don't have a reason for why the letter J wasn't invented until the 13th century. And I'll keep saying that. The letter J wasn't invented until the 13th century. The letter J was not invented until the 13th century. The letter J was not invented till the 13th century. So you have a very big problem with the Jesus, because you have this Greek Septuagint that was written and has the true name. The Dead Sea Scrolls have the true name. 6,283 times it says Yod-He, Ud-He, Yahuwah. So, I mean, that's a whole nother lesson, I guess. Now, in the 3rd century, the people of the north were barbarians, meaning bearded Aryans. They were druids who burned their enemies and criminals in wicker cages over fires, threw wealth into lakes to water idols, like we still see people do in fountains, you know, as they flick the coins into the fountains, burned children as offerings to the sun, and placed jack-o'-lanterns outside their homes, lit by candles made from the fat of their own children. If they weren't pagans, nobody was. The legendary Nicholas couldn't have been there at the time. Another major problem is this. They claim Nicholas was a bishop, presbyterian, elder. Yet, at his death on December 6th, he had only reached the ripe old age of 17. Bishop means elder from the Greek word presbys, old man. The tale contains many conflicting facts. Now, the Roman Catholic Church honors him as a saint. How did we get from Nicholas to Santa Claus? In the late Middle Ages, the Germanic Dutch who told the story of Nicholas to English listeners spoke in a very pronounced accent. When they said St. Nicholas, it sounded like this: Santini Colas. The English heard it as Santi Claus, and the Spanish from Santa simply means saint. You will sometimes see the form Santi in old books from earlier in the 20th century. The Irish potato blight. All right. Now, the Irish of Ireland had grown very dependent upon the potato during the 18th and 19th centuries. The potato was a transplant to Ireland from Colombia, South America. Now, in 1846, a fungus destroyed the crops, causing widespread famine in Ireland. Vast numbers of people died, and the decline of the population was catastrophic. So much so that the only hope of escape from death was immigration. It was precisely at this point that most Irish came to the United States, fleeing the Great Famine. What they brought to the United States for the first time was Catholicism. Since many of the earlier colonizers had fled here from the religious persecution of Catholic and Anglican intolerance, these Irish Catholics had the rich cultural background of Druidism, which they had blended together with Roman Catholicism. Their belief in elves, banshees, leprechauns, fairies, luck, and all sorts of Celtic magic came with them. They brought their pumpkin rituals seen as Halloween, which had been a Druid festival honoring Samhain or Samhain, their deity of the dead. They also brought their Christmas tree tradition along with Christmas, which had been outlawed as pagan in many colonies in the 17th century, especially. The Catholics in South America have assimilated the cultural background of the Aztecs. Other Catholics from around the world would not recognize many things they do, and so it is with them in many other parts of the world. Whatever the indigenous pagans were doing before became intermixed with the Roman Catholic order of things, camouflaging the paganism. The Haitian voodoo of Cajun Catholics mixed pagan and Catholic traditions down in Louisiana, where the alligators grow so mean. There were no pumpkins on porches or Christmas trees in America until the potato fungus drove the Irish people to flee their homeland and migrate to North America. Things like paganism go better with Coke. In the late 1800s, a pharmacist put some cocaine in a sweetened, bubbling Coca-Cola beverage and named it Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was invented by Dr. John Pemberton, an Atlanta pharmacist. By the 1930s, it was a major business, and it had its own advertising department, strategists, and artists. One of the Coca-Cola advertising managers, Sundblom, decided to attempt something new. The Dutch/Irish character called Santa Claus was beginning to get a lot of attention, so he set his mind on aligning the Coca-Cola product with him. In Sundblom's time, Santa Claus didn't look like he does now. The original character was an Irish transplant coming from people who had based their beliefs on Druid magic and elves. The 19th century poem, The Night Before Christmas, had catapulted our Christmas elf into the spotlight because the character was so appealing. Sundblom used his imagination to change Santa Claus into what we think he looks like today. Before Santa was 2 feet tall, skinny, and wore green. He had a long white beard, and for all practical purposes, he was a leprechaun/elf creature with magical powers to grant wishes, watch you without being seen, and so on. He could also do you harm. The alignment with the hearth is another pagan syncretism, right down to the stockings hung by the chimney with care, to make this night visitor charming and more human. Sundblom made him a full-sized man, jolly and plump, to better assume the distinctive shape of the Coke bottle. He used the appealing red and white product colors to clothe Santa in. The drooping wizard hat was a must, obviously. The final artwork was combined with the marketing message to encourage customers to leave a bottle of Coke near the hearth when he visits at midnight, Christmas Eve. Now you know why little children say, but how can Santa fit down our chimney? Isn't he too big? Well, he's big now, but they also tell the children that Santa has magical powers. When he was less than 2 feet tall, he could fit into many such tight squeezes. Telling an outright lie to your children has an effect on them later in life. It harms their faith in truth. It perpetuates the lie for generations down the line and cripples them for life regarding believing in things they cannot see, such as an unseen creator. Lying to them about Santa certainly isn't going to help them believe who is the father of lies. Who is the father of lies? Well, we know who that is. Tradition is a powerful stronghold. If you put up a tree, hang stockings by the fireplace, and exchange gifts this coming Roman December today, well, not anymore, technically, watch for the mistletoe. It's poisonous, and a pagan spell surrounds its ritual use too. It is just a parasite to a tree. It'll kill a tree. But the custom of hanging it up and collecting kisses comes from Druidism. The name St. Nicholas may coincidentally relate to Revelation chapter 2, verse 15, and the reference to the Nicolaitans, which I'm going to be doing an episode on who are the Nicolaitans. The messenger to the assembly at Pergamum was to carry a warning about the teachings of Balaam that they embraced. Likewise, you also have those who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. Repent therefore. It has been said that these were a sect of religious teachers who lorded over the laity, which is what Nicolaitan means. I smell Nimrod all over this, don't you? I don't get the impression that Yahusha likes us to mix up our worship of him with pagan designs or wants us to have any contact with it. Light and darkness cannot be mixed. And you should look further into the Asherah tree or the Christmas tree. And you'll see that it is a cult symbolism, is really what it is. But the Asherah is known in Scripture as the Queen of Heaven and is called Artemis by the Ephesians in the book of Acts chapter 19. The word Asherah is found at least 40 times in the Tanakh. So I really urge you to look this up. It refers to a wooden object used in the worship of a consort, Baal. All right. It was such so enticing that Solomon built a whole city, Astaroth, after it, and had nothing but these trees all over the place. So thank you guys so much for watching. We got 43 minutes in. Fantastic. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll be back with some new episodes soon on some newer topics. I got a whole book of lessons I'm so thankful for. My aunt got me, so it's fantastic. And they're just these quick lessons that I'll have. They're 4 pages, 1, 2, 3, 4 quick lessons that I'll have. Like this one right here was on Christmas. And you can go to fossilizedcustoms.com and get these. You can get the whole PDF file and just go to your local Office Max. You can go to tourzone.net as well. Go to your local Office Max and print them all out, or your local library and print them all out. But these are awesome reference tools and also good study guides and good teaching guides as well. So that's why I utilize them. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. I know that the holidays are kind of rough, for all of us, because for a lot of us, we don't celebrate the holidays, as I was just explaining why we don't. So it can be a lonely time or a hard time because of family and stuff like that, and I understand that. But just know that Yahuwah loves you and is very happy and very glad that you decided to honor him and be obedient to him in these times, and you will be rewarded for that, So just know that, and it's very pleasing to him, and that's rewarded. I think that's rewarded enough to know that we're pleasing him and that he's happy. You know what I mean? I think that's rewarded enough. So I love you guys with all my heart, and at the end of all my videos, I always like to say, run to Yahusha.